Okay, students. So today we're going to be talking about base 10's grid and COVID-19 statistics. So we're going to be using COVID-19 statistics to make base 10's grids together. Okay? So we're going to be talking about a 4th grade math standard today and a 4th grade social studies standard. So both the things we're discussing today are those standards. If you want to read them, you could read through this right here. So our objective is by the end of the lesson, students will be able to discover the correlation of COVID-19 patients by gender by reading a base 10's grid and determining their own percentages. All right. So bar graph and backstory. I want to talk today about what is COVID-19 as well. So a lot of us are in our houses. We have been quarantined and have to stay social distances away from people we love, our friends, all of that. So why is that? Why are we doing all this? Well, we're doing it because of a disease called COVID-19. So it's a global pandemic. So a lot of people in the world have been affected by this as well. And not just like have caught it, but affected their daily lives. But today we're just going to focus on US citizens who have been infected with the disease. So who have caught this disease. It is highly contagious, so the numbers have tended to rise. So hopefully we're on the downhill now, but we shall see. So I want to look at our bar graph now. So based on our previous knowledge we have about a bar graph, we know that this right here is the label of the whole graph. So this is US citizens infected with COVID-19. So that's what we're looking at here. And now I want to talk about here, this label. We have number of people infected out of 100. So out of 100, this is the total people infected. So we know men infected and women infected. So together, this is 100. So it kind of looks like the men infected is 50%, maybe a little over. And we know women infected is about that as well, right? They're very, very close together. Now I want us to take our attention to here as well and compare the two. So this is called a base 10's grid, right? So we see the US citizens infected with COVID-19 labels here as well as it was here. So with that being said, this is labeling this whole graph, right? So I want to also see that these labels, men infected and women infected, have been carried over as well. So this is the women infected with COVID-19 is shaded in orange, and the US men infected with COVID-19 is shaded in blue. So this is saying that the citizens infected, this is the relationship between the two. Now, one thing that we do see is missing though is the number of people infected out of 100. We don't see that here. But we do know, based on our knowledge from base 10 blocks, that this is a flat, and a flat equals 100 units. So we see that each one of these, all of this together equals 100 units, right? Okay, so now I want to talk about, sorry about that. Let's focus on a base 10's graph together, okay? So we're going to answer some questions. We went over what it all means. So now let's answer a question. What percentage of people infected with COVID-19 are women? How do we find that? Okay, so we know that all of this is 100. So we know that our one whole equals 100, so that could also be known as our denominator. So now we need to look at how much of this is shaded orange because we know that's what the women are. So we know that these one row or rod equals 10. So let's count by tens. 10, 20, 30, 40. So that would be 40 over 100, right? So now let's count our units as well that are shaded orange. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So that's 9 over 100. So we have 40 hundredths plus 9 hundredths equals what? 49 hundredths. And we also know that that also equals 49%. Whoops. 49%. There we go. Okay. So we know 49% of US women are infected, and we found that by counting our unit blocks. And if it's easier, you can count each individual one. But since we know our rods, it's easier to count by tens and then count by our ones, right? So now I want you to try a question. So I want you to find what percentage of people infected by COVID-19 are men. And if you can pause the video here and figure out your answer, maybe show your work so then you can check your answer at the end and see where you went wrong if you get it wrong. But I want you to figure that out and then come back to me. Okay, I hope you all took a time to pause the video. So now let's look at this together. So like we said, we count our rods or we count each individual unit, but I'm going to do rods for time's sake, okay? So we have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. So we have 50 over 100 or 50%, and then we have 1 over 100 or 1%. So what is 50 plus 1? It's 51, right? So I hope you all got the answer, 51%. So we know 51% of US men, or 51% of the population the 51% of the people infected by COVID-19 are men. Okay, so now let's create one on our own. Sorry about that. So we're gonna clear this out. There we go. There, we're gonna clear this out for us. Okay, so our question is, if 4% of the population has died from COVID-19, then what percent has survived? Shade the tens grid to show your answer. So we see that 4% of the population has died. So what percent has survived? Yes, it's right here, but let's see how we got to that answer, right? Okay, so we see that 4%, so with that being said, they've died. The ones who have survived would be the opposite, right? So subtract 100 minus 4, right? Sorry about that. Okay, so 100 minus 4 is the 96%. Okay, so now let's shade this graph, right? So we know that the 9 is our rods. So let's go 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, and 90. So we have 90% shaded there. So now let's get our 6. How do we get our 6%? We count our 6, sorry. Okay, so we have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we see here that 96 of these blocks are shaded blue. So that's what it asks, shade the base tens grid, right? So now I want you all to see also the comparison. So now we have 4 white blocks. Well, that's the 4% of the population who have died. The blue is the amount that have survived, right? Okay, so now let's go back to this. And I want you all to try one on your own. So before you try one on your own, I want to go over the data on this graph. So this one has changed a bit. So it says the US citizens, it's based off of the US citizens who have died from COVID-19. So all of this, our whole base tens grid, is the amount of people who have died, okay? But here we look at it compared to women is in orange again, and men who have died are in blue, okay? So I want you to, your question now is based on what we've went over, find what percentage of people who have died from COVID-19 are women, okay? So I want you to pause the video here and think for yourself about what answer, and then unpause it. Make sure you show your work as well, so that way if you get the answer wrong, you can look back and see where you messed up. But pause it and then resume the video and we'll go over the answer, okay? All right, so now that you've paused the video and had a little bit of time to think about it, we're going to do this. We're going to find out what the answer is. So again, we're finding the percentage of people who have died. We're finding the percentage of women, right? So we know 10, 20, 30. So that's 30%. 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36. 36%. I hope you all got that answer. All right, and if you didn't, please go back, check your work, see where you messed up. That way you can learn from your mistake as well. All right, so now where I found my graphs for this video, this is where I found my graphs for the lesson. You can look, there's much more statistics on this website here. So now that we have discussed how to read base 10's grid and the correlation of gender to COVID-19 disease, I want you to think about who is more likely to catch COVID-19 disease. Is it a male or is it a female? And I want you to explain that data using, or that answer using the data we found today. Now, being I'm not in a classroom with you, I can't tell what answers you've come up with. So we are going to go over this. But if you need more time to figure this out, please pause the video and figure out your answer before we go over it. That way you learn the whole material, right? Okay, so our question is, who is more likely to be infected, men or women? So I want to go back to this slide. We see that 49% of women, of the people infected by COVID, are women, and 51% of the people infected by COVID are men. So if we compare these numbers, which one's bigger and which one's smaller? 49 is smaller than 51, right? Yeah, so we know that men are more likely to be infected because they have a 51% of chance, because they are 51% of the people infected, whereas women is lower at 49. All right, I had so much fun teaching you all today. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. I hope to see students very soon. And stay safe, everyone, during this crazy time. Thank you so much.